see what you think, man. No, be open-minded about it. I mean,
you're not good. The Bible says no one is good.
Oh no, I get it. No, I know.
Well, you don't get it. That's why we're here. You don't get it.
See, false accusation, man.
I'm saying you don't. If you got it, you'd be at the abortion mill.
Today.
We're gonna have a fellowship later.
You're engaging 3 people right now. You don't know anything about it. You don't know.
I know you don't care about this.
The things that we are.
If you, I know what you're not involved in. That's why we're here.
Why? Because you haven't seen me there. Because I haven't been where you are.
Well, they haven't seen you, and they're local.
We're there every time they kill babies, and we have not seen any one of you there.
Right.
Anybody
because they only do it in one spot in the state of Florida, right?
Oh yeah. Well, you live in Polk County, don't you? Shouldn't you care about Polk County?
Do I see you're engaging someone you don't know anything about?
Well, you attend church.
We know what you don't do. We know that you're not rescuing babies from being murdered down the road 2 miles from here, not 15 miles.
What is the purpose of the church? It's to encourage the body to go out and preach the gospel and to serve the world, right?
What I'm saying is what y'all are doing isn't wrong in itself. What I'm saying is the way you're going about it, you're just jumping from we don't care about the health of the church, we just want to save babies.
No, we do care about the health.
We do all that, sir.
So my question is, why aren't you? I mean, why this? Why not coming in and try and say, hey, let's.
Because this is where good. This is where
your walk in Christ.
This is where good men gather on Sundays.
Supposedly good men.
We can hit all of them at one time. Just like why I went to the March for Life. There were multiple churches there. We could hit everybody, all those churches, all at once, and say, hey, come help us. We need help at the abortion mill. There's hardly anybody that stands in front of it. We even get atheists come and stand with us that are pro-life, and I'm like,
I've had that.
It's insane that atheists are standing out here, and there's no people. The people with you guys have good orthodoxy. Your orthodoxy is correct. Your theology is correct, but your orthopraxy is terrible. In regards to the abortion holocaust, and that's all we're doing is saying repent with us. We were apathetic at one time too, and God had to change our hearts, and God did it through people standing on the sidewalk saying, hey, babies are being murdered, what are you doing about it? You know, and that's all it is. We're exhorting you to love and good works, provoking you to love and good works, and that's all we're asking is for help at the abortion mill. If this whole church stood in front of that abortion mill on Wednesday morning, I guarantee you abortion would be abolished in Polk County within a month.
And again, consider this. If this is too awful to look at, you are following me, even trying to block me, not physically, but you're trying to block me from showing this image to kids. If this is too awful for kids to look at, why do you tolerate it? Why has Daddy and Mommy done nothing to end this their whole lives? If it's too awful to look at, stop tolerating it. That's why we're here. If these images are so awful to look at, why do you tolerate it? Why do you refuse to go to the abortion mill and rescue these babies from murder? Just simple questions.
I'm asking the same question. You're calling out one specific thing.
Well, mass murder happening on your watch. This isn't just a sin.
What I'm saying
the book of Jeremiah.
On the sidewalk with you, you murdered them because you didn't. Did you stop with the abortion portion and start talking about atheists?
If you were there, you would know.
Okay.
If you were there, you would know. You would see how. No, that's not what.
We're not saying we're better than any of you. We're not. We're not self-righteous. We're here asking for help.
We love you guys. We care about you.
I mean, and
we know that God hates the worship of people that neglect justice in the land. I mean, and do you want to be consumed in that, in the wrath of God? Because of the injustice in the land going on?
Well, there's injustice to pornography. It doesn't mean that you should carry a pornography.
Pornography is not thousands of people being mass murdered every day, sir.
Thousands of people aren't being murdered.
I understand, but there's also an appropriateness. A kid should not be able to looking at a pornographic image.
This is not pornographic, sir.
Why is a pornographic image not okay for a kid? And this image is. It's not okay for a child to see that. That's all I'm saying to you.
Do you think people saw Jesus on the cross?
I've said nothing to you. I just don't want a kid to see that image.
Why?
This image is fine. This is fine.
What's wrong?
This is not appropriate for a child.
You think people saw Jesus on the cross? Little kids, little children saw Jesus on the cross?
Much bloodier than this image.
Do you think people saw that for the whole world to see?
That was public. It wasn't in a private room. It was public.
I guarantee you, children saw Christ on the cross, and God displayed that for the whole world to see.
And we're trying to hide this so the kids won't have. These kids, they're growing up seeing these images. They're not going to murder their babies. They're not going to murder their grandchildren. They're going to love these children. Part of the reason why I want, and maybe not necessarily here, but in churches too, actually. I don't know about here, but many churches around the country, by children seeing these images, they're likely not going to murder their children in the future. If they don't see these images, then they're probably going to fornicate. Yeah, church kids, they fornicate.
These
a lot of them do.
images have saved thousands of babies.
I've heard testimonies of people saying, I saw that image when I was 7 and I didn't murder my baby. That image stuck with me and I didn't murder my baby. And the grandparents can say, my grandbaby was saved because my child saw this when he was 7. Instead of mom and dad saying, no, don't look at that. Cover your eyes, Johnny. Cover your eyes, Susie. Don't look at that. That's horrible. No, their kids saw it. And I've had responsible, loving parents intentionally show their kids these images, knowing that their kids could recognize that is a murdered baby. That's what our culture does to children. And this is murder. Telling their kids, this is part of your homeschool, Johnny, Susie. This is what our nation does to children. That's what daddy and mommy are fighting to stop. Kids understand. Why adults don't understand, I don't know. Maybe it's because...
Passion for these images than adults do.
Yeah, I've yet to see one adult here today. Well, actually, I did. The car coming out of here, they had compassion, but I've yet to see one adult here have compassion or shed even one single tear. That's the appropriate response to these images, is to shed tears, is to grieve over it, not to say, don't show that to me, don't show the kids. No, it's to grieve over this, to say, who did this and what can I do to stop it, to make sure this doesn't happen to any more children. That's a Christian's response. Loving your neighbor as yourself, the fulfillment of the law. Rather than saying, we don't want to see that, well, you have no problem tolerating it for 49 years.
And just like the other side of the sign says, Jesus warned us.
Oh yes.
Religious men did nothing.
So ask yourself, is this me? Am I the religious man in the parable of the Good Samaritan?
He was in the ditch, bleeding.
Ask yourself, does this describe me? Am I the religious person in the parable of the Good Samaritan who said, that's not my problem, walk by on the other side of the road? And then the person that's not supposed to care, he does stop and helps that poor man who's bleeding to death. We can't make you care. The Holy Spirit has to work in your heart and convict your heart.
Yep.
And I'm not going to. God knows whether you're saved or not. I don't know. I'm not going to say you're not saved because I don't know. But what I will say is, Christians care about this. They take action. Maybe you are saved and God's working in your heart now. Maybe you're convicted. I don't know. But I've been around so many professing Christians for so many years that didn't care. Even professing Christians that said, yep, that's good to do to babies. I'm not saying people here are saying that, but that's how bad our theology is in this country.
I grew up in the church since I was 3 years old. I was in church, and I never was never compelled by anybody in ministry ever to go save these babies. Not one time.
That's an indictment.
Not one time. I've been in the church since I was 3 years old.
That's an indictment.
Is that the right response to mass murder going on in our city? We're indirectly telling the world that we don't care about these babies. That's what the world hears. Every time the church doesn't show up there when they're murdering babies, the world driving by says, oh, that's just those crazy people. The rest of the people aren't crazy. That's just one crazy family. But if they saw every church in Polk County, the people that could stand in front of that place, it would end.
It'd be over.
It would be over. And we wouldn't even have to do anything. You just have to stand on the sidewalk. I guarantee you it would end.
Can you tell me?
Martin Luther King marched in the streets for civil rights. Why aren't Christians marching in the streets for these babies being murdered? If these are truly our neighbors, if we truly believe they're our neighbors, we should be marching in the streets.
I've seen so many people, Antifa, Black Lives Matter, even the murder rallies, the abortion rallies recently, where fathers and mothers were going to the streets, going to rallies to celebrate murder. Even on Mother's Day, they were in the streets to celebrate murder. Why do they care more about murdering babies than the Christians care about protecting them? Can you tell me? The wicked care more. I've been to these abortion mills so many times over the years. I've seen so many people that are there to make sure the babies get murdered more than the Christians.
Yeah.
So the people...
Listen, let me be honest with you.
Yeah.
Okay? There's a lot of people you can engage with this. Okay? I'm not trying to engage you here. Okay? I'm not endorsing abortion. All I'm simply saying is, we do not, as parents, it's our choice what our kids get to see. We're in charge of shepherding them, and I don't think that's an appropriate image for a child to see. If you guys want to engage at the front of the church, away from the kids, we've done nothing to stop you from engaging with people. We've done nothing to stop you from in the sidewalk. We've been respectful to you, everything we can do. All I've simply asked, as a father, I don't want my child, you can agree with me or disagree, but it's my right as a father to decide what I expose my children to.
I don't
So,
know. That
you guys
just
call the
shocked-
law on us.
That
Is
just
that what
shocked
Christians
me.
do?
That just, yeah, listen,
Is that what
I've been right here in
Christians
front
do?
of one of y'all. I haven't been on my
I know.
phone, have I?
I'm not
I
saying
don't
you
call
did.
anybody.
I'm not saying you
That,
did.
that
simply
shocked
saying-
me. That shocked
Well,
me.
you're
just
part
like
of the
it shocked
church.
you.
You're
I'm
part of the
simply
church.
saying, guys,
So who called the cops?
we don't want this. We don't want this. I didn't call the police.
No,
but
we know you
That's
don't.
why I'm asking who
I'm not
called.
asking you. There's just,
kids to see that image. That's the only thing we're asking.
yeah.
Oh, if
you wanna
dad and
engage
mom
with
cared
people
more.
in the front of the church, that's fine. But
Morning.
not this.
Hold on, guys. You want, you going to the church?
Yes.
Both of you?
We're at
Yes,
the church, yeah.
Man,
Ma'am, sorry.
it's early. I haven't had my coffee yet. Hi, guys.
How you
Well,
doing?
Yeah, I was looking for the clinic, but I was at church, so I'm a little confused. One of
Well.
you guys called, right?
No,
No?
Wait, no.
Somebody called. Alright, I was trying to make a contact. Whose kids are those? You guys? Oh, okay. Alright, you guys good?
We just asked them not to show this image to the children coming out of the church. You know, I think.
I mean, to be honest with you, yeah, it's a little disturbing for the kids.
it's not disturbing enough to stop it.
But I know. I get it. So how you guys this morning? As long as, listen.
Everything's peaceful.
Yeah, no, I know. Listen, just don't block the traffic and stuff. I mean,
Are you a Christian, man?
Can I give you something to look at when you get a chance?
yeah, sure. I'll look at that.
it's
That's
the-
cool. Yeah.
You are a lesser magistrate. That's the dude. That's the doctrine of the lesser magistrate on the back of it, and it just to exhort you that babies are being murdered every week in your city.
And maybe you'll care more than the churchgoers here do.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately, everyone has a right to their opinion and stuff. I
Yeah.
get that. I respect that, man. I respect what you guys are doing. Some people don't understand and they've never seen this before. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that, too.
Thank you.
The only thing is, my words of advice, please don't block the traffic.
Yes, ma'am.
People coming in, they come in, don't.
They're in now. Not very
But
many people.
I understand
Yeah.
what they're saying with the picture because there are children here, and I get you guys. I respect your opinion. Just, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me figure out who called real quick, all right?
Guys, just think about that. If it's too awful to look at, why you tolerate it?
Yeah,
If it's too awful to look at, maybe we should stop tolerating it. Maybe we should get off our butts, go out to the abortion mill and shut it down.
I pray for the day we don't have to hold these signs anymore. I do, man.
I'd love to see the day I don't drive that van anymore with murdered babies all over it. But I have to because the Christians are,
I mean, we've got to expose it, man. We've got to wake up the culture. They've got to see what's going on. Think about it. 3,500. Think about it. We still remember 9/11, which was what? 3,200 people were murdered.
Not even
in
that,
9/11?
less than just under 3,000, I think. And
Somewhere around there.
and the elementary school shooting that happened on Tuesday, 19 kids were murdered. They were gunned down. And that's all over the news. The churches, I'm sure they're talking about it. And there's an uproar over that. 19 kids that are murdered. Thousands of babies murdered every single day for 49 years, and the pulpits are silent, the churches don't do anything. And you tell me that's an appropriate response? If the churches responded the same way to daily mass murder as this culture responded to that mass shooting, that one incident of mass shooting, abortion would have been abolished decades ago. I wouldn't have had to live in a culture, I wouldn't have grown up in a culture that said, this is okay to do to children. But I have, because the churches are, That's been our response. That's why we're here. Because the church's response is pathetic and embarrassing. We're more worried about our kids seeing these images than we are about the images actually happening, about babies being mass murdered down the road. Think about that. Think about that. That's why I'm okay with kids seeing these images, because maybe they'll have compassion when daddy and mommy won't have compassion. Maybe those kids won't murder their babies years down the road when they see it. Parents who cover up these images, I'm thinking, well, if you have a grandbaby that gets murdered 10 years from now, don't blame me. Don't blame me.
Maybe they won't.
What's your name? What's your name? I'm Ryan. I'm Nicholas.
Nice to meet you.
You as well. I understand our approach may seem harsh. Some may even say rude or whatever, or mean. We're just simply trying to have urgency in the midst of a daily emergency situation.
For sure.
And for 49, people ask me all the time, or they say all the time, I don't agree with your approach. I agree with you, but not your approach, or your method. Even my own dad told me he didn't agree with my method. So I understand that. But I look at the method of the pro-life movement for 49 years. What's their approach been? It's been absolutely pathetic. We pass bills that say you can murder your baby when you meet this criteria, or the mom's a victim. The mom's always a victim when she murders her baby. We have the pro-life movement teaching that abortion is not murder by refusing to punish moms who murder their babies after it's been abolished.
They've actually made it easier for people to have abortions. They made it safer for people to have abortions.
The pro-life movement.
Pro-life regulations have made it safer for people to have abortions. Why would we care about the safety of the person murdering more than the person being murdered? I mean,
that's like you have Ted Bundy or Charles Manson. That's like saying, he's going to murder people. Let's make it safer for him to murder people. Let's make it safer for Ted Bundy to cannibalize people and to murder them, and let's not punish him because he's a victim. That's what we're saying to these moms who murdered their babies, flush them down the toilet. We're saying they're victims. That's why abortion still continues, because the churches are silent, and because the pro-life movement refuses to treat abortion as murder. They refuse. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, the pro-life movement issued a statement. National Right to Life, Susan B. Anthony list, the March for Life, all these pro-life groups, they issued a statement saying we will never, ever punish women for having abortions, for murdering their babies, ever.
And God's law demands it. In Deuteronomy, it says if you do not put that person to death.
What I'm getting at, though, guys, is saving babies is amazing. I agree with you.
Well, join us then.
But changing hearts is what makes a difference.
Well, only the Holy Spirit can do that, man. You know that.
Right.
You know that. We can't change anybody's heart.
Right. But what I'm saying is we should, I think, again, I'm not saying what y'all are doing is wrong. I don't want my kids having nightmares.
We should all be having nightmares, sir,
Everybody
over
should be
this.
having nightmares.
We should be losing sleep over this.
That's collateral damage. We're in a war, man.
Yeah, but what you're doing is so here's my mindset, and you'll probably disagree with me, but that's fine. You show a 4-year-old kid, and then a 5, and then 6. And
He's
7.
3.
No, I get it. No, I get it. You don't think that causes desensitization of them? You don't think that desensitizes them to it?
Well,
You think it does the opposite? I'm just asking. Again,
it does that to an adult. It does that to me. I used to cringe when I'd hold this sign. I used to cringe, and now I have compassion for this child. I love this image now, not because of the gruesomeness of it, but because that's my neighbor, man, that was murdered. That little baby. This is the only baby picture this baby ever had. Think about that. How many baby pictures do you have of your children? This is the only baby picture this baby ever had, man, and I will never stop showing it as long as people like him are being murdered. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I wonder what these babies would say to you all today if they could speak. Would they ask you? And it's a question. It's an honest question. What would these babies say about your response to their being murdered? What would the children that are going to be murdered tomorrow morning say about your response? Would they say, "Great job, you're doing enough to rescue me," or would they ask, "Why weren't you there when I was being murdered?" Like, even if you stand on the sidewalk outside Planned Parenthood or the local abortion mill, and they go in anyway the mom goes in anyway to murder her baby, even if you're not able to save the baby at that time, you're speaking up for that baby's life. That baby had someone who cared, even if the child's own parents didn't care. You're speaking up for that baby's life. Or the churches won't even do that. And there's no consequences to going out there. You're not going to be thrown in jail, and not like in Nazi Germany. You're not going to be sent to a death camp and tortured to death or worked to death. So I just wonder, why won't the churches go out there? Why?
And we see what Christians did in history, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He died for the sake of the Jews.
I watched a movie.
Sophie Scholl did the same thing.
I watched a movie recently about Sophie Scholl. She and her brother, they were put to death through the guillotine simply for going to a local university and distributing literature, anti-Nazi literature. That's all they did, and they were put to death for it. And we're not even go out to the sidewalk at the abortion mill and plead for babies' lives when we can do it legally. And we can go have lunch and have air conditioning afterwards. How effeminate we've become, how pathetic and sissified we've become. We're such sissies. These people put us to shame. We're not willing to go out into the heat and and be screamed at by baby murderers and have things thrown at us to speak up for babies' lives? And I mean, we can preach this to you all day long. That may not change you, but just think about this, Ryan. Think about these things. I wish, I recall when I went to churches before I knew about this Holocaust many years ago, the churches I went to, not a single word was ever said, not a word from the pulpit, from anyone else. I knew nothing about this. My parents didn't talk about it, family, nothing. No one talked about it, so I didn't know. I didn't know until I was 22 years old. God bypassed the disobedient pulpits I was under, and He used Christian radio to show me what was going on. Christian radio is how I found out about the Holocaust, since my own church didn't do anything, didn't say anything about it. And I wish Christians had come to my churches and done this for me. And it's like, I don't know how I would have responded. Maybe I would have cared then. Because I heard about the radio, and I cared enough to take action by God's grace alone. And so, I mean, I wish Christians had come to my churches and showed me these images, including this one. Maybe I would have said, my God, what happened to that baby? Who's the monster who did that? Maybe I would have taken action, even if nobody else cared. And so, like, just like when I go to the high schools, and I tell them the same thing. When I was in your shoes, I wish Christians had done this for me in my high school. So the churches, I wish Christians had come to my church and done this for me. Maybe I would have been the only one there who cared. I don't know. Don't hinder these from children. They need to see it.
Francis Schaeffer said, if you know who that is, a Reformed pastor from the 70s, he said every church in America should have a sign in it.
Or he said,
a sign of abortion clinic that says, open by permission of the church. So we made a sign that said that. This abortion clinic is open by permission of the churches in this community.
The abortion mill, the honest truth is the abortion mill 2 miles down the road, it operates with permission of King's Church. Think about that. The baby murderers down there, they have your permission to murder children, to slaughter children in cold blood. They have your permission. Your silent approval. I think one of them, the other guy said that he didn't approve of abortion. Well, he does with his silence, with his apathy. Silence in the face of evil is evil itself. That's what Dietrich Bonhoeffer said.
And he said, not to speak is to speak, and not to act is to act.
So your actions are pro-abortion. Your actions are pro-murder by not doing anything. Again, you cannot say you didn't know, Ryan. You can't say you didn't know. All you can say is, I didn't care. But think about this, okay? Think about this.